but I really, really want an answer, and I demand some action on it too.
Things get crazier and crazier every day with this Justin Trudeau Liberal government. Today we've got an entire jambalaya of mixed bag of stuff, tons of clips, as well as the craziest one of them all. Pierre Poilievre gets called a dictator in the House of Commons. So let's jump into this.
Has your government decided whether they will increase the carbon tax over $170 a ton past 2030? Yes or no?
There's been, as the chair of the committee said earlier, I'm not obliged to answer yes or no to those questions. There's been no such determination made at this point.
You're not obliged, but I think you have a moral duty to answer Canadians.
I have an obligation to answer. That's exactly what I'm doing. I think an issue and as significant to Canadians as climate change deserve better than a yes and no answer. I guess that's my point.
Yes, they absolutely do. If you're going to go beyond quadrupling the carbon tax, absolutely. Any indication? Do you think you might?
And I'll remind you that it's not a carbon tax. It's a pricing system on carbon.
So the way it's going, do you think it might, or it might not?
I think it's the third time. I'm happy to repeat it again. It's your time, sir. We haven't had any conversations about that.
Oh, unbelievable. It's not a tax, folks. It's a pricing system. He's not saying anything confirms he intends to increase it. A vote for the Liberals is a vote for more carbon tax. Yeah, that sums it up right there. If they weren't going to increase it further, he'd just say no. So that's a yes. Next up, we got this clip here. Liberal MPs coming unhinged when media challenges them on their attack on the Conservatives pertaining to that word. She basically just gets called out by the media. This is amazing.
We as women want to know whether the Leader of the Opposition will ensure that his caucus does not put forward legislation that in any way impinges on women's rights and freedoms, in particular bodily autonomy.
His office has already said that.
What part is not clear? His office has said that they're not going to use the notwithstanding clause on abortion to regulate abortion. He said he's not going to legislate it, introduce it, pass it. So what part's not clear?
That's his government. There are ways that you can have private members' bill that are introduced as well, and the risk is still there. He voted against Morgentaler back in 2008 as person. I mean, he is, in every sense, that caucus and that leader has made women wonder about the risk that they're going to be taking with this leader. And I want him to come out and unequivocally say that they do everything to defend a woman's right to choose, that they will not allow their members to come forward with private members' bills and put forward bills that suggest that a fetus is a person, which is a backdoor way of, again, addressing this issue.
Is it he was here? The Harper government had 10 years. I know you weren't here. Many of us were. 10 years in power. They had 4 years with the majority, didn't move one bit. And they had private members who wanted to do things. Guys, you are all 30 points down the polls. I'm looking at some of you will not get reelected if there was an election this fall. This is the most cynical play to just throw the abortion scare tactic. Would you like to respond to that observation?
Absolutely. It's not a scare tactic. We've seen what's happened in the States. Do people really think Roe versus Wade would have been overturned? Do we think what was happening there was going to happen? I've been in the women's movement for over 50 years. It is not a scare tactic. Things are going backwards, not only in Canada, but around the world. And these are real risks for Canadians. We need to know very clearly that that party, policies put forth at the convention, individual members are not going to introduce things because we do not want to go the same way as the United States. So it is not a scare tactic. It is a very strong concern. And I may not have been here then, but I was other places working on women's rights, okay? So do not use that as a reason why it's not a scare tactic.
Last question. Let's just put it back the other way. The government hasn't also legislated to protect abortions either, right? So why doesn't your government introduce legislation to make it harder for that to get rolled back if there is a Conservative government?
You do not want to legislate woman's body. You do not legislate woman's body. That is not. You make sure that you have access to abortion. You don't want to legislate anybody's body, particularly a woman's.
Even if that is to protect the right to choose, like you're calling?
No, you don't want to legislate your ovaries, your uterus. No, that is not the way that you protect women's rights.
Yes, it is.
That reporter just destroyed her. Jeez. She walked into that one. Next up, we got this clip here with some vile-tongued liberals. Guess which one it is?
Calgary Shepherd.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, more Canadians are now going hungry and homeless, and the latest annual risk outlook from OSFI highlights that 76% of mortgages will come up for renewal by the end of 2026. Now, the Prime Minister's high mortgage rates are creating misery for Canadian homeowners. And again, the Liberal government's own bank regulators flashing red stop signs. The Bank of Canada governor has said that out-of-control federal spending is not helpful. How much more mortgage payment pain will Canadian families have to face and endure to satisfy this NDP Liberal government's big government spending?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
That member should know better than to stand up and talk about financial markets when his own leader is the person that has promised to send tremors into the international financial system by taking over like some dictator the operations of the Bank of Canada and arbitrarily firing the governor. The governor who, of course, is watching inflation very carefully, and I know he will have noticed that inflation for the fourth straight month is down to the Bank of Canada's target range, and we want to continue getting that inflation number down.
I'm sorry, but since when can you call the leader of the official opposition a dictator? Pierre Poilievre can't call Justin Trudeau a dictator. What is going on here? Is he not going to get thrown out for that? Wacko is too much. Oh no, wacko is too much. But calling a guy a dictator, that's no problem. Spineless, no problem. Wacko, get him out of here.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Shepherd.
Well, that overheated and over-the-top rhetoric is cold comfort to homeowners who are facing hundreds of dollars per month of increased mortgage costs because of their decisions during the pandemic. They doubled the national debt. They increased spending by $600 billion over that time period. That led to higher mortgage interest costs. At the same time, when the Prime Minister was saying that interest rates would never go up, they are so low they could continue. And mortgage holders listened to him. They took out more mortgages, and now they're facing higher mortgage rates, so punishing they have a hard time paying for it. So my question to him is, when is the NDP Liberal Prime Minister going to learn his lesson, and is he going to give homeowners a break on these mortgage rates?
He's 100% right. I mean, Trudeau stood there and said, oh yeah, historic low rates, go out, take mortgages, blah, blah, blah. He knew what he was doing. He knew it. He wanted to just sock it to Canadians and make it, all of us suffer.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
I would take the member seriously, Mr. Speaker, were it not for the Conservative record. Those same mortgage holders in years past benefited from a tax cut to the middle class that this government introduced. They benefited from the Canada Child Benefit. They're benefiting now from the child care program this government has introduced. Dental care where...
Okay, enough from this crumb snatcher. We don't need to listen to any more of this guy. This grease lightning here. Let's move on. Next up, we got this here. Statistics Canada reports Indian international students most likely to reside in inadequate housing. Yeah, no kidding. Every report you hear of where there's 18 people living in a 1 or 2 bedroom in like bunks and sleeping on floors and all sorts of stuff, it's always international students getting crammed in there from India. Essentially, Sean Fraser and Mark Miller's policies of immigration is directly causing suffering to the people of India who are coming here. And on that note, we have this video, which is outrageous. What we've got here is a couple guys from India who went on a hunger strike because they don't like how much money they're paying in Canada for their tuition. So it says here, international student living in Canada says it's unfair that he has to pay more tuition than a Canadian who was born and raised here. That's how it works everywhere in the world. You go to America, same thing. We have to pay more. As when I went to Vancouver Film School, I paid $24,000 to go to school there. All the international students had to pay $40,000. That's just how it works.
And my friends who work from here, he paid $2,500 for same course for 2 semesters for 8 months. How fair is that, sir? This is where I'm coming from, what I paid extra. How interesting is that? All together I paid around $30,000 for my tuition. For same schooling fee, a person who is born and raised in Canada paid around $10,000. That $20,000, whether it led me to the country, but that is not a thing, right? Extra $20,000 for same thing. And still suffering, how unfair is that? And my friends.
Whether it's gouging, whatever you want to call it, it's just like that around the world. You're going home, suck deep. Life ain't fair, and it's not fair. We have to pay more for housing and can't find jobs because you're here. Ooh. I'll help you pack, Parjeet. Then he should leave. What country are they from and how are Canadians treated in that country? Basically, yeah, if any of us went over to India and started going on a hunger strike and complaining that we didn't have fair rights in India, like, come on. Get real, man. Next up, we got this post here. Canada's smallest province, PEI, has become the first to push back against mass immigration. The Indian community in PEI is not taking it very well, threatening hunger strikes to the death, which is exactly what we just saw there. So if we look at this article, we've got a land chart here. Basically, all the yellow here is Scottish descent. We've got First Nations in the purple. We've got French is this red, blue is English, and green is Irish. So this is back in 2016. Now, I don't know how much of this would be Indian population now, but that's what it was. This tweet here sums it up. The simple truth, if you import a large number of people from a foreign country, your country begins to look more like the one they came from. This is exactly what I was saying earlier. There's a graph down here that shows it. So this blue here is all from India. I don't know why we don't have a rule here that the pie chart has to look like this all the way around. You can't have more than, say, 10 or 15% from one country. We do know the answer is because we've had Sean Fraser and Mark Miller, these complete idiots running the immigration system, making stupid decisions. This chart here shows the immigration of PEI. You can see skyrocketed here in 2024. Just keeps going up. They're not reducing the immigration in Canada. They're jacking it up, even with this housing crisis. Once again, you can see the population graph here. This is 2022, so it's actually up here now in 2024. This chart here shows where the people are coming from. So this is births and deaths. So there's actually more deaths than births, but then here's the immigrants, boom. And then this one here is also immigrant net non-permanent residents. Immigration accounted for 96% of Canada's growth in the third quarter of 2023. Just 4% of the population growth was from births. So you want to know why we have a housing crisis? That's why. You can see here housing starts on this graph are kind of flat. They've gone down a bit. This one, based out of Charlottetown and Summerside, the city housing starts are going down every year. We've got the residential average price for PEI. Started around $150,000. Now it's $400,000 for a house. Consumer price index for rent. PEI is off the charts here. This chart here is interesting. It shows the inflation by territory. And basically sum it up, the top one, PEI, the bottom one is Nunavut. And all the rest of us are right here. Jumping ahead, we've got this chart here, which shows the migration across Canada. So if it's on the left side, it means people leaving these places. The right side, this is where people are going to. So the most people obviously leaving Toronto, Montreal, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Regina, Saskatchewan, Hamilton. And then you've just got a whole bunch of Ontario cities. And then starting when they're going upwards, we've got Victoria, Red Deer, Moncton, Lethbridge, Halifax, and then boom, Edmonton and Calgary are the top ones. We've got this tweet here from Shazzy Goalie. Builder blowout. There's more and more of these stories popping up. It's just outrageous. So buyer walks away from Brampton pre-construction after paying $300,000 in deposits on a $2.1 million Brampton house. The builder just launched a suit for $300,000 deposit, $600K in damages, including costs and interests. The home was just sold for $1.4 million. There are hundreds of these all over Ontario. I mean, the fact that these people walked away and just giving the builder $300,000, like, what right do they have to sue someone? Like, get out of here with this. Like, this is just absurd. Speaking of absurd, we got this clip here of Adam Van Couverden, who's always absurd. Why are all Liberal MPs so ignorant and condescending?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And again, ironic coming from a member who has been advocating and has actually written a petition to this House of Commons for Canada to leave the United Nations altogether. We see yet again more disinformation from the Conservative members on climate change and affordability, two issues that they either don't understand or simply don't care about. If they did care, they would acknowledge that Canada is reducing our pollution and inflation is coming down. But the Leader of the Opposition wants to scrap it all. He doesn't want Canadians to receive their Canada carbon rebate on July 15th. He just wants to make sure his rich oil and gas friends can pollute even more and get even richer, Mr. Speaker.
This guy is unbelievable. Like, this is just like condescending, gaslighting, whatever you want to call it. Like, basically, if Canadians don't want the carbon tax, they're supporters of big oil. Like, get out of here with this garbage. Because liberal math says there's 27 genders. Adam forgot all those times he traveled using fossil fuels for rowing. His boat was made of plastic. If you're not aware, he was an Olympic rower, I think. He has a, whatever, I don't know, gold or silver medal or something in the Olympics. He should go back to Olympic sports, something he was good at, not this disgraceful garbage of being a liberal. If you stop giving us all your money, then how could you benefit from us giving you a small fraction back? I can't believe anyone says this with a straight face. Nobody's getting more back than they're paying out. That's not the way government programs work. And speaking of criminals here, we've got another clip here of Guilbeault.
Well, thanks so much, Stephen. I mean, one of the things I'll end on by saying to people in Winnipeg South Centre is, I know that if we don't move forward with aggressive climate change policies, not only are we going to see the impact of this, obviously, on the environment, but we're also going to start to be left out of the conversation by our allies. They're going to tax our imports, they're going to leave us out of trade deals, and we're going to be the laughingstock of the world if we do not do our part as the world is coming together to be a part of this incredibly important transition. So thank you for your work and for spending a few minutes with us today. Okay, thanks, Steve.
You know what makes us a laughing stock of the world is we actually make water bombers, but we don't have water bombers to put out our fires. Thanks for nothing, guys. You spend our money on stupid crap, send it to all sorts of countries around the world, spend it on stupid programs that don't do anything, building bureaucracy. You don't buy any water bombers, which we actually need. Next up, we got this here is a pod for going into the nether realm. It apparently passed an independent legal review showing it complies with Swiss law. At the push of a button, the pod gets filled with nitrogen gas, rapidly lowering oxygen levels, and the person inside perishes. Don't tell Mark Holland about this, because maybe he'll get some ideas about installing these in Canada. Next up, we got here a big picture on petroleum use. So you can see here the percentage of energy demand by province. This is in 2022, but this is kind of interesting just to look at it. So if you got like BC, 31% came from petroleum, refined petroleum products, and 29% natural gas, where the opposite, 64% natural gas, 29% petroleum. And if you see here, you know, it seems like 30% is for most provinces of refined petroleum products. PEI is as nearly 70%. The natural gas is the highest in Alberta. It kind of bounces around a bit here, but with only 7% natural gas being used in Newfoundland, which is why the whole heat pump carbon tax carve-out thing came about, and giving out free heat pumps, all that garbage. Speaking of garbage, we've got Justin Trudeau, and I promise we're not going to play much of this clip, but he is noticeably irritated in this clip. And not only that, if you watch this whole press conference, which I highly recommend you don't do, but Sean Fraser is Mick Twitchy. He is, I don't know what's wrong with him. If he didn't take his magnesium or what's going on. He looks like Chrystia Freeland. Towards the end here, they ask Trudeau some questions and he gets pretty spicy. His venom tongue is really starting to strike back at these reporters, and this reporter just goes off on him.
Except the problem with that argument on their side is that Canada has the strongest fiscal balance sheet in the G7.
No.
We're the third largest country in the world with a AAA credit rating. The question is, how do we help Canadians when conservatives are busy trying to cut services for them? So I think it's important that people be calling out these conservatives, calling out people like Stephen Ellis, who is the conservative health critic, who continually talks down the kinds of things that are going to help thousands upon thousands of people right here in Truro and across this part of Nova Scotia.
I think he's pissed off that all his accelerator and all these announcements, people aren't praising him. He wants to feel like a god, and it's not working. I think that's why he's annoyed. That's all he cares about is power. He grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. This guy, he doesn't fathom the idea of not having enough money to pay his rent, to pay for food, for his kids' schooling. He doesn't even know what that means. His dad was rich. All he knows is he got to go after something that's hard to get, and that's power. And he's got it, but no one respects him. That's what we got going on here. The man's breaking.
Leadership is about stepping up and being there for people. That's exactly what today's announcement is. That's exactly what we're going to stay focused on. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
He wants to be looked at as this great leader, and he's an absolute loser. He's a bonehead and just an absolute worthless prime minister.
One more question.
One more question. Thank you very much for taking my question, because it is a local healthcare crisis. You must know that you're in the heart of where the Nova Scotia shooting happened. It is claiming more victims, whether it's people that are on the front lines of healthcare, whether it's the amazing Mounties that are in this room that answered that call that day, whether it's members of the media or extended members of the victims' families, one of which and her friend took their life the night before the 4th anniversary. There has been an epic failing, as far as I can see in my reporting, both provincially and federally, to truly respond to this. What can you do? What can your government do? Not political. Please don't politicize this. What can you do to hold some accountability? Some money has been able to flow, but nothing is happening, and it's still not being monitored. So how is this money really getting to the people that need it? How can we support the healthcare people that are burned out in this region and still having extended spin-offs from that fateful day? They need help. They need support. I appreciate your announcement today, but I really, really want an answer, and I demand some action on it too. Please.
Well,
Wow, that is...
I understand just how devastating the mass killing of 4 years ago happened, and how...
Trudeau, you don't understand. Don't even say that. You don't understand anything that Canadians go through.
Much of an impact it's had on families, on communities, on first responders, on people who were there to support and continue to support family members through extraordinarily difficult times. We know there needs to be done more. The other thing we're doing as a government is continuing to move forward on stronger gun control measures to deliver the kind of...
So he just goes on a big long-winded thing, blabbering off a bunch of stuff. Those kind of questions are pretty rare because most of the time you get the woke media asking questions, so there's no real heartfelt questions from people really affected by real issues. And you could tell that they're all taken back by it because they're not used to those real questions. So jumping over to my group now, it's time for some memes. Arrogance when smug narcissism isn't enough. Sydney Island deer call will cost taxpayers $12 million. So I covered this story a long time ago, 4 or 5 months ago, and it was $835,000. They took out 54 deer on Sydney Island, which is just north of Victoria, just kind of a couple hours south of me here. I don't know what this is. I haven't seen this one. $12 million. I know they're going back there to do a couple more rounds of wasting our money. They basically hired a SWAT team from America and Australia and using banned pew-pews in a helicopter, which is illegal. You're not allowed to pew-pew from a helicopter in Canada. You're also not allowed to use those pew-pews in Canada. So they're breaking multiple laws and wasting our money at egregious rates doing this. But I have not heard about 12 million. But you can see here, this is on Global News. So I'll dig into this for a future episode. This man has a date with karma. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, he's going to be heckled for the rest of his life anytime he's in this country. He will not be welcome in this country. He can't just go and surf in Tofino without people being on the beach heckling him. He can't walk down the streets of Ottawa or Montreal, Toronto, you name it. Who do you want fighting and leading this country, A or B? Most dies of heart attack in supermarket after seeing the price of cheese. Gross. That is not a mouse. That is a full-grown rat. Justin Trudeau talking commemorative portrait doll. The quote on here says, leave your best guesses on what he'd say. $130 to have this piece of crap on your desk. He got Bubba in the background there. New organic all-natural Canadian rich socialist repellent. Next time a greedy pension-hungry NDP Lib coalition politician comes to your door, give him a spritz of frig off. And let the smell of being broke scare the pests away. These are the people calling you a far-right extremist. Keep that in mind. When I hear Justin Trudeau say anything, yeah. Canadian drinking game. Whenever Trudeau says, take a shot.
Okay, quick drinking game. Okay. JT is up. Whenever the Prime Minister speaks and goes either or ah, take a shot. Okay.
Oh.
That's it. I almost drowned that time. Okay, quick drinking game. Okay.
This is hilarious. He's doing it with jag meat. What the heck? I'm giving out free contraception. Lesbians can't get each other pregnant. I did that and I helped. The economy is going great. We created 5 million jobs this year. I have 3 of them and still can't pay my rent. Yeah, that's basically it. Finally found a house in my price range. Yeah. What's crazy is in Vancouver, back in the day when I was in that whole world of real estate, you would get parking spots that were worth like $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 for a parking spot. Obviously, this is not downtown Vancouver, but this was in anywhere in Vancouver. This little house would be worth like something ridiculous, like $200,000 or $300,000. Me in 2025 handing out memes because my social credit score won't allow me to access the internet. Yeah. Oh, geez. Let's hope we don't go down that route, the route of China. Mr. Speaker, we need to talk. Look at this. This whole speaker situation is ridiculous. Surely there has to be a better way to appoint a speaker that's not coming from one side or the other. Even if we picked a speaker from, say, the Green Party, it would be biased towards those green policies one way or the other. There's got to be a better solution, because this is ridiculous. Anyways, that's where we're going to wrap up this episode. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought about Stephen McKinnon calling Pierre Poilievre a dictator. How is that? Wacko's way worse. Let's just wacko. Whew. Spineless, no problem. Dictator, no problem. It's just preposterous. The hypocrisy is just garbage. Share your thoughts down below. Be sure to thumbs up the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You want to get notified of all my videos. We'll keep fighting for freedom. We'll keep bringing you guys the truth. I'll see you guys in the next one.